Good morning, everybody. We are so glad that you are able to make today's event. And I would like to appreciate our commitment. And so the first thing I want us to really get right actually is to do a little bit of housekeeping. This is the first time we're running this program, and I must appreciate our alums led by Mr. Wolabi for making this to be a reality. On behalf of the US government, we appreciate you and your efforts. We'll also like to thank all the directors, excuse me, all the directors who have made this possible. We appreciate you as well. Now, for all the participants, today we are going to forgive anyone who couldn't make it, probably getting on time or something. So the 80% will start from next week, I mean by Thursday this week. So please, we have shared with you the handout for today. For those of you who are the American Center, we have also printed some of this out to you. This may not be the case in other locations, but we encourage you to please read before, prepare yourself before, and then let's really interact with our resource person today. Today, we are dealing with leadership development. We have the resource person already seated. His name is Mr. Olushola Owonikoko. He is a social entrepreneur who is driving inclusion through technology. He's actually the executive director of Stanford Edge, where he's scaling Project Enable Africa and incubating laffearme.com. He works at the intersection of development, business, and inclusion, and has over a decade of experience in building organizations, designing and implementing social impact programs and products targeted at promoting development outcomes for undeserved population. So I want you please welcome Mr. Olushola, who is also the current president of Carrington Fellowship Network of the U.S. Consulate General, Lagos. Can we welcome Mr. Olushola into this session?
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the invitation. And thank you everyone for joining in today. I hope you can all hear me okay. I hope you can hear me. Let's confirm that before.
Very well, sir.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. It's really a good privilege, a privilege and opportunity for me to be with you this morning and to discuss leadership development, which I think is one of the most talked about topic in this time. But unfortunately, it's also one of the things that we generally lack in our community for several reasons. But then it's important that we keep talking about it. And also because we are all leaders one way or the other. Either you're leading yourself, at least through personal leadership, or you're leading a team, developing a project, whatever you're doing, you are going to have to demonstrate some form of leadership. So I think leadership capacity is one of those things we must develop if we are going to be successful in anything we do. So thank you so much for joining in this morning and for being part of it today. So today, well, I'm going to have about 4 sessions with you guys. And in those 4 sessions, we are talking about leadership development, and that's going to be over the next 1 to 2 weeks. But then today we are focusing on just the first module in this courses. In this course, there are about 6 we have about 6 modules where we'll be talking about various aspects of leadership. Yes, so today we are talking about the first part, which is really getting an overview of leadership getting an overview of leadership. And the things we'll be talking about are those things you can see on the screen for those who can see the screen. But really, this module is to introduce the several leadership theories, the application of these theories we will discuss much more in the later modules as we go on in the session. But more specifically, we want to talk about the components of leadership, the theories of leadership, the principles of leadership, which I think is even more important than the theories, and the 4 factors that influence leadership, very importantly. So once again, thank you for joining. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I am aware that we have people joining from across Nigeria. So it's really great to connect with all of you. I would have loved to have a physical session, but I think for now it's best we have this virtually. And then the next 1 hour, like I mentioned, we are going to be discussing leadership, and hopefully we'll be able to take questions. If you have any question at any point, you can use the chat box. And as much as possible, when I see them, we'll try to address them. But otherwise, we'll take all the questions at the end of the session. So let's go right into it. Like I mentioned earlier, leadership is one of the most talked about things at this time. And that's because we are all, waking up to the realization that really everything rises and falls on leadership. If you see a country that is doing well, it means there's a good leader. If you see an organization that is growing well, there is good leadership. People don't build anything by mistake. You can, on a personal level, you might be able to succeed, have 1 or 2 successes that are unplanned for. But if you are going to sustain things personally, corporate-wise, for a country, for a community, there has to be some deliberate effort. And that deliberate effort would be coordinated by someone who is a leader in one way or the other. And I generally believe that at every point in time, every one of us would have to play the role of a leader in some sense, and then you'd have to play the role of a follower in another sense. So wherever you are, whoever you are, you are going to have to lead someone, and you are also going to have to follow someone. By being a Nigerian, you're following the president, you're following, the national direction, right? But then, even if you do not belong to any group where you have been recognized as a leader, you have yourself to lead at the very least. And I think that self-leadership is foundational to effectiveness in anything that we do. So one way or the other, in the next 2 weeks, we are going to touch on personal leadership, but today, laying the foundation, we are going to be talking more on, the overview of what leadership is and what it is not. Also, and leadership is a subject that I have paid a lot of attention to, and that is because I started to lead an organization very early as a young person, and I also had to lead people who were much older than I am. My team here at the office, in different organizations that I belong to. So it wasn't something I was going to leave to chance. So much that I also co-authored a book on leadership, just to help you realize how much time I have committed to not just developing my own leadership capacity, but also contributing to the leadership development of others, which is part of the responsibility we have as leaders, in our own space, in our own organizations or community, wherever it is that we demonstrate or we have the opportunity to lead other people. In summary, in a nutshell, everything I'm going to be telling you about today is that leadership translates vision into reality. Either it is personal vision in the case of personal leadership, or it is a group or team's vision in the case of, leadership of a team or an organization or a country. The goal there is there are things to be done. There are things people aspire to be. There are things that there's a way we want things to be around us. There's a way you want your organization to be. There's a way you want your country to be. And there would always be a need for us to systematically, strategically translate those aspirations that we have, the dreams that we have, the visions that we have into a reality, into becoming what we can now experience around us. And that process of translating vision to reality is leadership. right? Because if there is no active leadership, then we are not able to translate into reality what we want done. And that is very, very important. If you ask me for another word that represents leadership, I would say influence. And that is because when you talk about leadership, you're leading people. And one of the things I have realized that is that everyone has their own, plans, either you like it or not. Everyone has their own agenda. Everyone has their own priorities. Everyone has their own mission. People generally have their drive, even those that appear not to, have their own agenda. We always do. Either we already have, or we are putting one together, or we would have one. We always do. And it is important that you realize that no matter who you are, you don't have a monopoly on other people. Because we are social beings, we have minds. We can make up our minds to do anything we want to do, right? If everybody is going towards the north, one other person, two or three other people in the group can decide to go towards the east. And that is what their mind is telling them to do. And that is why it is important to recognize leadership as influence, because your capacity to influence other people to collectively do what the group has decided to do is very, very, very important in leadership. And that is why I would say leadership is influence, your capacity to influence other people to do what you think the group should do, or to do what the group thinks should be done, not just what they want to do as individuals, right? Because again, we all wake up in our homes and we have plans, we have directions, we have things we want to do. Whatever will make us leave that thing or those things we have decided to do and do what any other person wants us to do will be something that is important. And for you as a leader, the capacity to get other people to want to do what you want them to do or what you think should be done is an important attribute in life. And one more reason why you should pay attention to leadership is that technical skills might get you started in your work or in your organization. When we started my organization, Stanford Edge, one of our flagship projects is Project Enable. Project Enable actually started before we structured the organization into being called Stanford Edge. We started 8 years ago. Interestingly, just this morning at our office meeting, we're planning on how to celebrate our eight years as an organization. But then I remember that when we started 8 years ago, April 2014, it wasn't so much about any other thing as it was about technical skills, right? The capacity to get things done, the capacity to, put one or two things together and achieve success. But over the years, I've done less and less of those technical things that got us started and more of leadership and organizational things. And that is going to continue. It will get to a point where I would not be involved anymore at all in things around technical skills or how what we do is done. I would have to be involved more in the structure, the systems, the people that get what we do, that get what we do done, right? So in a nutshell, I'm saying that technical skills might get you started, might get you that job, might give you the idea to start the company. But what will keep you going? What would ensure that you get promoted in your office? What would ensure that you get to the top position that you want to get to? Is your capacity to lead others, to influence others, right? Is your capacity to get others to do what you would ordinarily have done. So that is why leadership is very, very important, because I lead a team of people, right? And I'm not going to promote anybody to the next phase, or the system we have will not allow anyone to get to the next phase if we do not realize that they can do more than just doing their job. They have to demonstrate that they can help others do their own job, right? That they've trained people who can get their own job done, or they've trained people that they can coordinate to do their own job. In a nutshell, they have to demonstrate that they are effective rather than efficient, right? Efficiency is when you can use resources to achieve the result. But effectiveness is when you can coordinate other people to get that job done. And hence, you can have multiplier effects or whatever you are doing. Likewise, as an organization, you might be able to write a proposal. You might be able to, build a product. But very soon, your job will be less about building products. It will be more about building systems, building organization, building, organizing people around certain vision so that they can get it done. And that is why leadership is important. It is not something you can ignore. If you ignore understanding leadership and investing in leadership, then you have positioned yourself not to grow in your career. You've positioned yourself not to be able to grow your organization. You've positioned yourself to be stagnant. You've positioned yourself for you to not be useful to your team or organization after a while, because other people are growing and improving. And after a while, they will outgrow you if you do not develop your leadership capacity. So it is important that we develop a leadership capacity, and it's even more important, the reason why we are here today. So, and when I think of leadership, there are two or three broad things, which is what this slide covers. The first one is character, who you are as a person, right? That's to a large extent determine what your leadership strengths or who you are as a leader. The second one is competence, your capacity to analyze, like we have here on the slide, to interact, to get things done, to get people together. And the third one is experience, which is accomplishments, what you have done, the benefits of hindsight, and that is why the earlier you start to practice and put to use what you've learned, the early you get to build the experience that you need to demonstrate even more leadership. This is very, very important. There is no leadership effectiveness without character, without competence, and without experience, right? It's very important. And it's good we talk about this because character is the foundation of it all. We've seen leaders who are very, competent, but they cannot be trustworthy. They don't have the integrity and self-awareness and renewal to be able to sustain what they are able to do. And the place of character talks about your being as a person, who you are as a leader, your being, right? The ethics, the value that you are committed to. That is important. It is also important that those ethics, values, and character aligns with the character and values of the team you want to lead, or the organization, or the country. And that's why every organization, especially when they recruit for management level, pay a lot of attention to values. They would ask you, what are your values? What is your own personal vision? What drives you, right? It's a question of leadership character. It's a question of personal character. It's a question of who you are, because it is who you are that would ultimately determine what you do, right? You might pretend for a while, but you cannot pretend for too long to do or be who you really, really are not. And we have to invest in this, in defining who our character is, what our drive is. The reason why you're doing what you're doing is important. We can have two people who are strong leaders, who are achieving a lot of results, getting things done. But at the end of the day, what will differentiate them will be why they do what they're doing. And that is fundamental. It is important that we clarify this. As a corporate leader, the leader of your organization, why did you start that company? Why are you doing that? Is it about money? That will come true. It's just a matter of time. Is it about self-interest? Is it about driving impact for other people? Is it about developing other people? Right? And there's really nothing wrong in starting things so that you can be fine. What is wrong is if that is more of the reason why you are doing what you're doing. If self is priority over others, then that becomes wrong, because it becomes a foundation for selfishness. It becomes a foundation for self-centeredness, right? But the point is, whatever we have, whatever we do, we all still want to prioritize ourselves, put ourselves there. But it becomes a problem when it's all about you. And that is why you have to check your character, right? When you started the business, many of us started businesses in Nigeria because it's for survival. And that's okay at that point, but we have to move past that point early. Otherwise, you become stuck as a leader in your own world. And it's just a matter of time because before everything comes, breaking down, because you won't be sustained. You as the focus is not enough to sustain an organization at all, because you don't have enough by yourself for yourself to sustain any other organization. It has to be about others at the end of the day. It has to be about bringing in other people, making sure things work for a common good, shared prosperity. That is what, whatever it is we are doing should be about. And of course, competence, beyond who you are, it's also important to ask yourself, what can you do? And when you talk about competence, you're talking about your capacity to communicate. And we'll still talk a lot about communication, your capacity to make decisions, your capacity to get feedback, collect data, and draw insights. Leaders who lack insights are not able to adapt well to change. And we know already that change is constant. Things will change. The COVID situation, like many of us know, the pandemic came as a shock to a lot of people. A lot of organizations have shut down. Some organizations would have to shut down, but a lot should not have shut down or been shut down, because if they have been better positioned for change, they would have managed better, right? Technology is coming. It's changing the way things, and a lot more technology will come. Blockchain technology, NFT, all of those things are changing the way we interact. Web3, the metaverse, these are the reality of the 21st century that every leader should read about, should prepare for, should understand, should analyze, so that you can look ahead and position your organization. I usually tell people that as a leader, you have 2 or 3 jobs, really. Number one is developing people, which is about leadership, people who will go on to develop other people and get your things, your task and things done. Number 2 is visioning, bringing people together to create a common vision and look ahead. Number 4 is strategy, right? Being able to look ahead and determine the course of direction for people and know when you should diversify, for example, or kill some part of your business. Or if you're leading a community, know when things, policies change might come and all of those things. So your capacity to look ahead, to perceive, judgment, to put together data, to look back and be able to forecast the future are those things you must be able to do as a leader. Right now, if you are not able to do them, it's not a problem, right? Because again, we all have to start somewhere and grow, but it becomes a problem if you are not working actively to develop this capacity. It's very, very important. Your capacity to interact with people. Leadership is about people, not about the task. It's about people, because all problems in this life are social problems. Even environmental problems at the end of the day are social problems. Everything is about people. As long as we are here on planet Earth, it's about people. Your capacity to interact people, to inspire people, to collaborate people, to motivate people, to let people see a future in them or for themselves in the common vision of the organization is important. That has to do a lot with communication, emotional intelligence, and all. So, in a nutshell, leadership, simply put, is how to translate vision into reality. And if we break that down further, leadership is really about influencing people. One word I would conveniently use to replace the word leadership is influence. And of course, you are not able to demonstrate the kind of influence and leadership you want or should demonstrate if you do not have character, which I think is one of the hallmark of leadership. Competence. The third one is your capacity, experience, what you've done, your capacity to draw strength from what you have done. Those things are important. I've been in situations where it wasn't a function of competence because I really do not know what to do. But just looking back and seeing how similar situations have played out previously is always, always help, for you to at least so let's talk about competence. We talked a lot about character, your capacity to define your own value your own, things that should guide you. And I'll quickly give you relates. It's about vision, what you're trying to achieve.
Hello, good morning. Please, can we can't hear from the speaker again. I don't know if anybody can hear, please.
I think we just started a slide on leadership competencies, and I was mentioning that character is important. So I was going to give you a picture to help you understand the place of value and all of those. So imagine that you are on a side of a body of water, and there is another, there's the other side that you're going to, and you just need to cross that body of water, a small river or a stream, and you have to construct a bridge to the other side. Where you're going to is your vision. That is right, and then of course that bridge going to go through. Then imagine that you don't have, to guide you so that you don't fall off. So I see value as that side bar, the rail by the bridge, to keep you from Can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry again. So let's go straight into this, the competence, the slide we have, the competencies that you have to build as a leader. We already talked about vision, which I think is like the foundation for leadership, because if you're not, there has to be a place that you're going, that the team is going, that the group, your organization is going. There has to be a destination. If there is none, then there is no motivation, there is no reason for leadership, right? And that is why it becomes really problematic when leaders come on board and they don't set a vision, right? When we look at these things thoroughly, then we can begin to, diagnose organizations around us, communities, or even countries. right? When we don't have a sense of collective vision, it's a problem. So an important competence that a leader must have is the leader should have the ability to increase the productivity of people, define the area define the direction through vision, a shared vision. That's why there is no organization you see today that would not tell you this is the vision, this is what we want to become, this is who we want to become as an organization, this is what we are trying to become. Because really everything in life is about who we are becoming, right? As a child, people would ask you, what do you want to become when you grow up? And that's a vision question. As a young person, they would ask you, what do you want to become? What are you trying to do with your life, right? So it's important that the capacity to create vision is an ability that we have. You know, either you lead a team of 2 people, or you lead an organization of thousands of people, or you lead a community where things are even not as put together as a structured community. You know, whatever it is you do, the first thing that has to be done is setting up vision so that everybody has a common direction, that this is what we are trying to achieve, this is what we are coming to do. And I think the last module in this leadership development course is about vision. And so we'll come back to talk about that. The second thing is the capacity to build people. Remember, I said earlier that leadership is about people. It's not really about the task. It's about who people are becoming. It's about what people want to become in the process of doing what they are doing. Many of us have goals, we have vision, we have goals, we have things we have set aside to do. But the mistakes we usually make is believing that life is about those things we are trying to achieve, those tasks, rather than the people or the person we are becoming. When you achieve that goal, that vision, there's a new person you're going to become. That is really what this life is about. That is really what the organization is about. And that is why we have to pay attention. Leaders develop high-performing teams that come together to collaborate on a common mission or goal, rather than just letting objectives go unassigned, right? So it's about people. It's about how you help people develop, how you help people improve. Of course, tasks would come in, a lot of things would come in, but it is really not about those things, it's about people, right? Don't forget the first thing leadership is about, the first competence that you should build as a leader is your capacity to envision, to see ahead, to see what others are not seeing, or to motivate others to see, right, far ahead. The second thing is the capacity to bring people together, to create, to become the kind of person they want to become. And that is really why people follow leaders, because they see in that leader perhaps something or someone they want to become, or they see in that leader someone who can help them become what they want to become, or they see in the vision of the leader the capacity for them to become what they want to become by helping that leader achieve their own vision. The third competence that should be built by a leader is win-win conflict resolution. Because we are talking about people with various agenda, right? Remember we said earlier that we all have minds of our own. We all can decide to do anything we want to do really at the end of the day. We all have motives, we all have agendas, we all have something we are trying to build. And sometimes those things conflict. Person A is going in a different direction compared to person B, right? Our capacity as a leader to bring people together to a win-win resolution is extremely important. For people to see that there's something for them in working together is very, very important. Win-win conflict resolution is a very big deal in corporate settings. It's a very, very big deal because an organization is just a bunch of people working together. And again, all of them have different things they're trying to do. So it is important as a leader, we learn to effectively undo and management conflicts and disagreements. And this is a competence we would have to continue to build because conflicts come in different levels, in different areas that would have to resolve. So it's important that we are able to put, not just do that, but also put structures in place to get that done. In fact, measure of your capacity will always be determined by how much you're able to quickly resolve conflicts and people to work together in peace. That is very important. Let's look at the other leadership competencies. Training and coaching. Again, we are already established people. People who want to, they cannot be more. By working with you, you stop being, and that's just what it is. So as a leader, you to train others, to coach others, to help people learn, to create learning opportunities for people, to help them realize that even small mistakes can be converted to learning opportunities, right? To help provide an environment where feedback is done, where development is possible, and where people can see opportunities to grow. Everybody wants more. The concept of leadership will be better understood if we study people, if we understand people, the social dimension of our environment. Everybody has everybody wants something done. Everybody has a goal. Either they have written it down or not. Everybody wants more. We must realize that. Our capacity to help them achieve more, to help them achieve what they want to achieve, will determine the extent of our leadership. It's very important that we establish that. The next competence we have here is accurate, quick situation assessment. There will be different situations as leaders that we will be faced with. Our capacity to quickly assess those situations, understand those situations, and determine the course of actions will be very important. Very, very important. And here, decision making is key, is a key strength or a key skills that we have to develop as leaders. The capacity to see what is available. And that's why when you see top leaders of Fortune 500 companies, presidents, governors, they would always have a think tank team that is helping to bring data of situations to them so that they can make decisions. As a matter of fact, at that level, a key responsibility you have is decision making, looking at situations, looking at conflicts and making decisions. But you are not able to make effective decisions if you don't build pipelines of feedback, pipelines of data connection. If you don't build those pipelines to yourself, it will be difficult. You will make, right? So it's very, very, very important. The next point is really also still close to what we have been talking about, commitment to people. Again, leadership is about people. People want to be involved. People want to be part of what you're doing. People want to be part of the journey for different reasons. Some people are just genuinely interested. Some people for themselves. Some people because they want you as a leader to succeed. Or whatever the reasons are, leadership is really about engaging and involving people. In recent years, fields like community engagement, stakeholders engagement have become really important. Community leaders, they have become new roles that are created in organization. In our office, we have a community mobilization person, because really what we do as a leader is about the community, it's about other people. And if they do not have the opportunity to contribute, very soon they would not be engaged. And as a result, they will disconnect from you. People naturally gravitate to places where they can express themselves, where they can talk, where they can state their minds, where they can use their talent, their skills, and develop further from there, right? So if there's anything we have talked about today, it is the fact that leadership is about people, how you make people feel, where you are able to, the possibility you are able to paint for people through your vision, the opportunity you are giving people to grow, right, and improve, the task you are giving people as an opportunity to learn and improve and grow, right? The environment you're giving to people to express their mind, that is really what leadership is. So if you think you're leading and you have made yourself just about the task, then it's not sustainable. A few times things can be about the task, but ultimately, those things are just opportunities for people to grow, to improve, to learn, and to move closer to the achievement of what they want to achieve, what they want to get done, where they want to be, who they are looking to become. That is really, really, really important in leadership. Let's talk quickly about leadership. I hope you can see my screen now. I'm just saying in the comment section that someone is saying they can't see my screen. I hope you can. If you can't, please drop a comment.
I see your screen.
So, leadership theories, and you know what theories are? Their theories are confirmed assumptions that people have tried to prove and they found to be generally true about things, about situations, right? And there are three leading theories of leadership that guides how people think, how people perceive, how people see leadership. And I'll tell you the three and then summarize it down for you using other words. The first one, like we can see, is the trait theory. And that is a theory about traits may lead people into naturally expressing leadership roles. And this is just saying that leaders are born, right? That some people naturally have leadership capacity, leadership attribute, leadership traits, just born with them. And I agree with this, right? As a theory, it's true. I've met people who, this is just natural to them. They naturally just, volunteer for leadership position. They naturally just have this urge to be seen, to be in front, to make sure things are right, especially people who are like firstborns in the family. Maybe events made them so, but in most cases, they just rise to leadership, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that they are trained or competent leaders. It just means that by default, naturally, they assume leadership, right? Sometimes people just have exceptional capacity to communicate. Sometimes people just have natural exceptional capacity to see ahead, to draw insights. And these things make us perceive them as leaders. Sometimes people just have the capacity to bring people together, and work together, right? So this theory is just saying that leaders are born, that leadership is a function of who people are. When you see people who are born in royal families or families of people who have big businesses, then one way or the other, by maybe because their fathers are leaders and it's become something that is in the family, it's just natural to them. However, we must understand that even though people are born leaders, there is always still a need to develop capacity. And complementary to that is saying that those who it might appear that they are not born leaders, can also develop that capacity, right? Because again, at the end of the day, it is something that can be worked on. The second theory is great events theory. A crisis or important event will bring out extraordinary leadership qualities in an ordinary person. And that is important. There's people who are not natural born leaders. Maybe there is conflict in the community and nobody is doing anything about it. And it becomes really, really expedient that somebody steps up. And as a result of the conviction we have that things can be done better, we decide to step up, right? So that's really an opportunity for leadership. So there's been extraordinary events, like I mentioned earlier, the case of being a first child. I am a first child in my family, and growing up, I realized that the demand is on me to just stand up and take action, because my parents will sometimes flog me for what my siblings have done. And as time goes on, in order to avoid being the victim, to be blamed for other people's action, I have to step up and make sure those things don't happen or put me in such position. And that is an example of great events theory, where people perceive those who step up to the situation as being leaders. Is that leadership? Yes, but there is always room to get better, right? To develop the capacity, because usually when people are forced to step up, they lead according to the capacity that they have. And if they do not have the necessary capacity, they may fail. They may succeed in the short term and fail in the long term, right? So it's important that leadership capacity is developed. And that's what leads us to the to the third part. So remember we said that trait theory is as good as saying that leaders are born. Great event theory is as good as saying that leaders are chosen by events, by realities, by demand, right? Sometimes maybe calling, some people will see that way. Leaders are called, either they are qualified or not, they are being called, they are demanded to be in certain leadership position. Some people will run away, some people will step up to it. Those who step up to it is really those that are perceived as leaders according to this theory. But there's a third category, which is even more relevant and is perhaps the most widely accepted theory today, which is the transformational leadership theory. It's a situation where people choose to be leaders by learning leadership skills. It's basically saying that leaders are made. And it means that whoever you are, whatever you are, whoever you are, you can become a leader if you choose to be, right? So this is the most, like I said earlier, the most widely acceptable theory today. And it is based on training, developing capacity, building character, developing the competence to become a leader. There are a few other theories, but these are like the three biggest or the most widely referred to theories. The fact that leaders can be born, leaders can be chosen, and leaders can be by self-choice, right? Leaders can be made is important. And I think this is one we should focus more today. Either you are a naturally born leader, or you don't think you're a leader, or either events have demanded that you step up to the leadership situation, or you haven't had such events. You can choose to be a leader by developing the capacity, developing the skills, building the character needed to lead in whatever situation that you may find yourself. Good leadership. And I particularly like this one because history have proven that leadership is not always good leadership. There can be people who have character, who have competence, and who have the particular set of values that are needed for certain situations. And people who have the experience, but yet they do not demonstrate good leadership. I hope you understand that there can be bad leadership, there can be good leadership, even though I think the word bad leadership sounds somehow, but we've had people, and a typical example in history would be Adolf Hitler, who was able to lead a group of people effectively to execute a large number of people, the Jews. I'm sure you've heard about you've read that history, or you've heard about that story of how Adolf Hitler led the Germans to kill the Jews, lots of them, and they led to the World War. So it's important that we understand that the difference between good and bad leadership is not competence, it is character. People can be competent in bringing others together for a bad cause. People can be competent in creating the vision of bad things and get others to buy into it. It's amazing how a lot of people can buy into such vision that Adolf Hitler has. But really, he's competent and he delivered. But what makes the difference is our character. Good leaders have honorable character. They are flexible in their personal and leadership styles, and they place organization's mission above their own personal gain and recognition. Three very important statements. Number one is character. When people get into position without first building character, they cannot exhibit anything that is good leadership. And the situation is really pretty much around us, because I think some people get into leadership position before they are prepared for it. And the best they can do is to mess things up, because what people don't have, they cannot give, right? So it's important that while you wait to become what you want to become, while you are building towards the biggest point in your career, develop character, right? Learn to be good, learn to see the good in other people, learn to be a person of value, learn to be trustworthy, learn to have integrity, learn discipline. Those things are important, because Character is also what is the first thing that will make you fail as a leader. You can be competent and all, but if you do not deal with some of those integrity issues, discipline issues, those things will come back to bring you down. And we've seen big organizations crumble, come down, break down and are not sustainable because they do not have somebody with good ethics leading them. Ethical leadership is very, very important. Very, very important. Beyond character is also flexibility in leadership style. And that's where you can demonstrate good leadership. We are still going to see leadership styles where I heard in this training, situational leadership, different types of leadership styles. Some work in certain situations, some don't. And personally, I've realized that your personal, trait as a leader will show in your leadership style, but that is not enough. And I'm sure you know about personality styles. Some people are very, very choleric, so they drive things. They're in the center of all of everything, but that is also not sustainable, right? Because as a leader, your own personality traits or your own personality has to evolve, has to grow if you are going to sustain good leadership. Otherwise, you would only attract certain type of people. You would not be able to attract everybody. And with that, you would lack some key skills on your team. You would lack some key people who can deliver certain type of results for you. There are some people that are a bit laid back, not because they're not loyal, but because naturally they are just not driven, right? You cannot drive or work with those people the way you'd work with those who are choleric, who are task-oriented and want things done. And there are some people who are very, very finicky. They pay attention to everything. They are very organized. Those that they call melancholic group, right? Who are very reserved sometimes, right? And there are people who are sanguine, persons, they are there, they're the life of the party. Different styles of leadership will be required to manage all of this. And your capacity to demonstrate, or your being able to demonstrate good leadership is having capacity to work with different type of people and being able to switch different leadership styles. And finally, a show of good leadership is prioritizing your team's mission beyond or above your personal mission. I mentioned earlier that you might have started the organization because you needed to make money. But as the organization grew and other people join, then it has to be less about you and more about all of you together. Otherwise, you will not be able to keep people. They would come, they would go, and you would not be able to retain talent in your organization, good talent. You will not be able to have people committed, especially when it comes to social causes where they are not directly benefiting money or direct benefits. You would not find people to lead, to work with such. And I can give you a quick example quickly. I remember a few years ago, I was on a program in the US. It was a group of African students. And in our school there, we were required to, implement a project together, all of us. The project was to be at the end of the program. But then there was one of us who came for the program, had ideas about she wanted to do for our organization and all. And she was going on well. The leadership, they all bought into it and all. And eventually she was trying to also recruit all of us to support our projects, which was needed a team project anyway. But where she got it wrong was because she had that idea, everything fund, and she just wanted us to get into it. Of course, everybody revolted. It became a big issue. She felt, not supported, and it eventually got escalated to the school management. But the point she missed was the fact that we all also want to be seen. We all want to also showcase our organization. We all also want to connect, to have opportunity. We just do not want to support one person's idea. Not because we hate her, but because we all have agenda, interests, missions, right? So all of us should be seen. And the way that was resolved was for her to bring her own idea and everybody the idea. We eventually did the project she wanted, but added a few things such that we all could showcase what we do, and then it became a team's project. And that became an important lesson for me, because people are not just interested in helping you get to where you are going to. People are interested in getting to where they want to go. Capacity to bring several missions together to form one mission that gives opportunity for everybody to showcase their own mission and get forward and move forward a bit is important. And that usually will require sacrifice. Maybe you want 10 points, another person wants 5 points. It might mean that we find an average, and maybe the average is 6 points. I might not get my 10, but I'm getting 6. But I'm getting 6 in such a way that I have the network, I have people who are willing to continue the journey with me, rather than me getting 10 points at the expense of another person not getting anything, right? And that is a concept of good leadership. Respected leaders concentrate on what they are, rather, I would say, on who they are. That's what respected leaders do, what they know and what they can do. Again, respected leaders concentrate on who people are, the beings, helping people develop, building capacities for people, what people can do. And of course, in the process of that, helping people increase in knowledge so that they can replicate over and over again what they have done. Finally, we are going to talk about the principles of leadership. What makes leadership? What are the guiding traits of leadership? How do you know that there's leadership here? And there are 11 of them that we have according to this content that we're going to talk about today, and then we'll bring today's session to an end and take questions. Don't forget, if you have questions, leave them on the chat box if you have, and if you're in the American corners, I'm sure there will be ways you can pass them to the team leader of each center, such that we can talk about some of them before our time ends today. So the first one here is technical proficiency. As a leader, you must know your job. You must know your job and have a solid familiarity with your employee's job. I will say that what this point is saying is know the job to be done as a leader. People want to be sure that the person they are following knows what is happening, is in touch with reality. And sometimes the job to be done is not necessarily the task. Sometimes it is somebody to connect all the tasks together. Sometimes it is somebody to manage the timeline. The job to be done is really important. The first question you want to ask yourself is, what is the job to be done? I'll give you an example. Whoever is going to become the president of this country has to know that one of the jobs to be done is fixing security. No matter the competence you have as a president in present day Nigeria, if you don't know the priority, the job to be done, if you do every other thing apart from that job to be done, you would not be perceived as a good leader. I hope you understand what I'm saying. What is the job to be done as a leader of your company? Every day I ask myself, what is my primary role as the leader of my own organization? It's important, the job to be done. June marks the end of our financial year. We start a new year in July. And I already know from like few weeks back that right now the job to be done for me is to present a new vision, a new strategic direction for the next 1 year. If we come January 1 and there is no new thing to talk about, there's no new direction, people would lose motivation, because then they don't have a sense of higher demand, higher calling for them to work towards. So for me, the job to be done is define the strategic direction, or at least create a platform where we can all come to define the strategic direction of the organization. For some people, the job to be done is improving people, developing people, right? The job to be done may always change. It might be the same, but it is important that you understand what is the job to be done. What is it that people want done? Right now, security, economic hardship, those are the jobs to be done right now. There was a time I wrote an article around the failure of the African Union because I felt, not because the African Union is not effective, but right then, as a point where I wrote about that, the job to be done was not done. And it was a point where a lot of Africans were being abused and and drowned in why they tried to cross from this, North Africa into Europe. And there was just a lot of mess up going on there. And I felt the African Union's part of their primary role was to provide leadership for the continent with respect to protecting its people. And they were not doing that. They were not saying anything. So much that the AU-EU summit was now addressing it. The EU summit was now addressing it. Why those of us who are primarily concerned are not doing anything about it? It was a moment of leadership failure because the job to be done wasn't done. As a leader, you must ask yourself, what is the job to be done today, this year, in this decade, during my term in leadership, as a CEO, as a president, as a leader of the community? You will not always have to do everything, but you must do something crucial, important at that point. As a general sense, a job to be done for the leader is developing people, creating vision and strategy for people, and networking. That would always be jobs to be done for a leader. Moving on. Another principle of leadership is knowing yourself and seeking self-improvement. You can strengthen your leadership abilities by reading, self-studying, taking appropriate classes. In a nutshell, emotional intelligence, self-awareness. You see, you will not be able to lead others beyond the point to which you can lead yourself. When you see leaders who are highly deficient in their leadership capacity, if you check further, they are also deficient in their personal leadership, their capacity to lead themselves. It's important. Someone said that leaders manage resources, and they must know that the first and perhaps the most important resource they have to manage it is themselves. The capacity to manage yourself, to be self-aware, to know yourself, to know your strength, to know your weaknesses, to know what to develop on, to know what you should say yes to know what to delegate, what to do by yourself, and to continuously improve on that is an important principle of leadership. This speaks to your being, who you are. You must pay attention to that. You would not be able to give what you don't have. Part of the reason I read for several reasons, but part of the reasons I read is because I always want to have something to say. I have a fear of the fact that if I stop reading, I will soon have nothing to say, or I will be blabbing, and soon people will not listen to me anymore. And I think it's true. You have to be connected to something, or you have to draw inspiration from somewhere for you to be able to inspire others, right? Because we all have limits, because at the end of the day, you are one human. And you have to keep developing that capacity to give. If people keep getting from you and you're not replenishing yourself, you'll soon run out. You'll soon become irrelevant. You'll soon get to a point where nobody is asking you to do anything because they've gotten everything they can from you and they've realized that you keep bringing old content, nothing new, nothing fresh, no new perspective. You're not helping them see into the future. And there would always be others who are doing that. And then you become irrelevant. So it's important to keep reading. And reading is perhaps one of the most important way to develop. Even when you go to school, when I did my master's program, I realized that I learned more from the materials that they gave us to read, because that is when you really sit down to have balanced opinion. In fact, I prefer reading the news and listening to the news, because when you listen to the news, it's almost like somebody is telling you what is. But when you read, you can read different opinions and form your own opinion, which is important for mind development, right? Which is really, really important for, being a better person, for you to be able to create your own concept. And that is what even academics is about, for you to be able to create new concepts, take what other people have, put it together and be a production of knowledge, not just a consumer of knowledge. Many of us are consumers of knowledge. We are like Nigeria, just consuming. What are you creating? After you've read this, what is your own thought to? Write it down so that others can read. And in the process of reading, processing, and writing, you'll learn a lot more. One of my mentors once told me that when you read, you do three things. You have a conversation with the author of the book, because definitely somebody is sharing their own perspective, their own thoughts. You also have a conversation with yourself, in the context of your own reality, through the lens through which you see the world, what has happened to you, then you have an even more deeper conversation with your conscience, your mind. And that is where you form new thoughts. That is when you think and meditate about things. And that is where ideas are born. That is where new concepts and realities are born. That is where people get better. That is where transformation happens. The point where you consume knowledge, process the knowledge, and create new things. You have not completely read if you do not form new thoughts. It's not just about reading, and taking. It's also about you forming new thoughts. And that is the point of studying. That is what studying means, right? And it's very, very important. Reading, following other leaders. I said when we started that leadership is not just about leading, it's also about followership. You can easily tell when someone will be a bad leader by how they follow others. When people just always want to be the one leading, I can almost tell you that they will not be good leaders. A very important trait of leadership is your capacity to also be humble, to learn from others. When you momentarily do not have leadership, authority or position, it's very, very important. And whoever you have, you must have somebody you're learning from, somebody you listen to, beyond just the fact that you are able to talk to other people. As a matter of fact, dangerous is that person who listens to no one, right? So it is very, very important. It is key to your own leadership development. If you're a corporate leader, find somebody in the corporate sector to listen to, somebody who is much ahead, right? If you're leading a society, a social cause or a social organization, find somebody in that space to listen to. Not necessarily because they would always give you new insights, but because they can help you make more sense of your past experiences, of your present situation, and that will give you better position to create new insights for the future. And in some cases, it will give you new insight into the future. That is right, and that speaks to mentorship, right? So it's very, very important. The third point and principle here is keep your people informed. I have found that communication is perhaps 80% of leadership. I've seen fantastic leaders who do not communicate well, and because of that, people perceive them as bad leaders. And I've seen people who are not really competent, but who are excellent communicators, and people perceive them as being good leaders. In a nutshell, your leadership capacity would most likely be evaluated by how much you are able to communicate effectively to other people. What are you trying to do? Communicate. Do you want people to come together? Communicate. Are you facing challenges in whatever you're doing? Communicate. Know how to communicate with people. As a matter of fact, if there's anything any of us will learn, if there's the number one skill in leadership, I think it's communication, because I've seen leadership situations where the leader is not the originator of the vision, but because they are able to effectively communicate, as in listening, they are able to understand those vision and run with it because it is theirs. There has to be a vision for leadership to happen. But even if the vision do not originate from you, how well are you behaving? Are you able to communicate it? Letting others learn and see and know and be involved and engaged is extremely, extremely important for leadership. You have to be able to communicate with those who are not at your level, those who are at your level, and those who are above your level. Those three levels of communication are important. You have to be able to communicate in writing. You have to be able to communicate in talking. You have to be able to communicate in signs, your body language, the way, all of those things, people are watching and people are taking a clue from those things. And lead communication is just really, really important. Responsibility. Number 4 principle, your capacity to take responsibility. And that is a show of maturity in a lot of ways. When things are going bad, when Chelsea, for those who follow football, or Barcelona, when they fail, the first person they blame is the coach, who wasn't even on the pitch, who didn't play this football. But everybody knows that the effectiveness of the coach is reflected in the effectiveness of the players. So your capacity to take responsibility for the team's success, for the team's failure, is very, very important. To say that if things fail here, it is me. If things succeed, it is me, right? I'm going to be committed to this, right? It's that's very, very important. Take responsibility for your own actions, first of all, for the actions and inactions of your group. Search for ways to guide the organizations to new heights. And when things go wrong, do not blame others. Analyze the situation, take corrective actions, and move on to the next challenge. Taking responsibility is just making the decision that you are going to give it all your best and make things happen. It's very, very important. Next step is develop a sense of responsibility in your people. So you can see the responsibility is not just one way. You have to take responsibility for yourself and for the team, but also helping the team to take ownership. This is about taking ownership so that everybody really feels as being part of the overall. They are responsible within themselves. Success, very, very crucial. And on this page, the sixth principle is make sound and timely decision. Decision making, like we said already, is a very, very important skill, which really, really close to problem solving skills. To be a victim of that, and that's because I to make decisions, so I want to push it to when it's more convenient, but that doesn't always help. There are some times you just have to make that decision right now, or else it will be late. There are some times you have to be intuitive, but you can't be intuitive you also cannot all the time wait for all the facts. Sometimes waiting for all the facts will be why responsibility is important. Because if you take an intuitive decision and things go wrong, you have to take responsibilities for it and find ways to fix it. You need a good blend of both, but data and evidence is king. And that is important in problem solving, bringing all the facts to the table, considering the pros and cons of everything, and make an active decision is very, very important. Creating decision-making process or system in your organization as you scale is also important, so that you don't always have to make all decisions. You only make the key ones. And don't forget, that in the process of this is also a lot of learning opportunity for your people. So engage people in decision-making, problem solving, and give rooms for mistakes. Using people's mistakes as an opportunity for them to learn to get better is also important. Because of time, I'm going to move ahead so that we can leave time for questions. This is the last slide. So for the principles, ensure that tasks are understood, supervised, and accomplished. Communication is key to responsibility, right? So it's important you help people understand what their tasks are, because again, as much as leadership is about who we are, we have to demonstrate that through what we do. And when their tasks done, then people have to be supervised. Delegation skill is important. Supervisory skills important. Putting a bigger team in smaller teams for people to work with one another is really important. Next is use the full capacity or capability of your organization by developing a team spirit. Use the resources you have. Understand the difference between efficiency and effectiveness. That we can have really efficient people, but that are not effective, right? People who are all about activities, getting things done, but are not strategic enough to actually effect change. You must understand that, difference, right? That people can be really good at activities, how to combine time resources with money resources and all of those resources, but are not effective. But it's also important that you know that why efficiency is good for proper management of resources, it must lead to effectiveness. Things must change. If things do not change, then all of your efforts are not, being productive, right? Bottom line must change. The impact you're trying to achieve must be done. Outcomes must be seen. That is when results are seen, right? In this world that we have, it's sad actually, but effort is not rewarded. It is results that is rewarded. So you must be effective. Effort is getting things done, putting all of the effort, right? But people don't see that the world naturally celebrates where results happen. So it's not just enough that you get things done, activities run around. And I've seen leaders who are all about activities, they wake up, run around, do this. That is not leadership. Leadership is really ensuring that why those activities are done, it ends in results. Those activities produce the right results that you want to see, because followers, the people you work with, they want accomplishment, they want wins. And if things are not done, they don't have a sense of winning. And it makes people weary over time. People will be tired because we cannot sustain energy for a long period of time without renewal. And winnings results are a good form of renewal, right? So when you plan your tasks, put small wins there that people can quickly mark within 1 week while you are working towards the bigger one, right? So it's important to understand the difference between these things. Train your people as a team. Give them opportunity to work with one another, with different types of people. Put them, that's why their department, their sessions, their teams. It's really, really important that you build solid teams, because the higher you rise as a leader, the less things you do, the more thinking you have to do. But when all of those thoughts are done, some people have to do them, and you have to rely on your team members to get those things done. So empower them, strengthen them all they need to give them all they need to do what. Thank you. I hope you can see me now.
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry, I had to join from my phone. I have to good internet. Well, they were good until today. They haven't been good today. So we're almost rounding up anyways. I was just hoping I could take some questions. So the last two principles, sorry, I'm not able to share my screen from my phone. I hope if you can help me share, I'd appreciate that. The last two principles, we're talking about the fact that leaders set examples. And then the last one is know your employees and look out for their well-being. Really, leadership is personal as much as possible. So you should get personal with people, know people, be genuinely interested in people, especially for their growths, for the achievement of whatever they have as priorities and plans for themselves too. That is important. So that's the end of today's content. We'll continue from there on Thursday, I think. But just to do a quick recap, we have said leadership is about translating vision to reality. And in the process of doing that, you have to influence people to work together. We've also talked about some leadership theories, which really is about the fact that the traits leadership leaders upon. Some other theories, which is great event theory, says leaders are chosen, or they have to step up, or they are called. And the last one, transformational theories, that leaders are made. And I think, like we said, that's the most widely accepted, which is the fact that there are evidence to the point that anybody can become a leader if we choose to be. And we talked about the fact that leadership is based on three key things. First is character, second is competence, and then the experience that you bring from what you've done, previously important. And then we went ahead to talk about the principles, which is really around things on personal development, knowing the task to be done, the job to be done, communication, taking responsibilities, being an example, exploring the capacity of your team, because that way you explain the capacity of your people and giving them opportunity to grow and improve in whatever to do. We said you should be an example, which is really key. And at the end of the day, be genuinely concerned and interested in people, because that would always show. Your people will know if you are truly concerned about them or not. So that brings us to the end of the first module, which is what we are talking about today. The next sessions will talk about other things, what leadership really is, defining leadership, the leadership styles. We'll talk about that. And I'm saying all of this so that you can know what is coming ahead. And if you have questions around that, you can delay them for for that time. We also talk about the skills that needs to be built, right? And the styles of leadership. We'll talk about those in the future sessions, leadership styles. We're also going to talk about how to empower the people, creating an empowering climate for your people. And then finally, we'll talk about visioning, how to create visions for that people are happy to follow and be part of, which is really co-creating the vision with people. People don't want to be told what to do. People want to be empowered by being part of the decision on what to be done. And that is when everybody really is important. Thank you so much for having me. And once again, I apologize for all of the internet disconnections. Thank you.
Can we jam our hands together for I have two questions here. The first one is, please, can you state the types of leaders we have?
Okay, so I don't want to go into that now because we are going to talk about that in the future. So answering your question, we'll be talking about our future session, and I'm sure you're going to stay with us for the next 2 weeks. So we'll come back to talk about those, if that is fine.
Yes, I think it is fine. Oluwakemi also said, thank you for so much, Mr. Olushola. There are some leaders whom I used to follow because I felt they make good leaders. Or let me say they produce good leaders in this country. But later I discovered that they are only making those leaders for their own selfish reasons, for future purposes, just for them to buy time or something. Should I still see this as a good leadership style I must follow? Thank you so much.
Okay, that's an interesting question. Again, we've identified over and over that everybody has an agenda. Even the leaders, sometimes they have what they are trying to do. But the question you want to ask yourself is there something you can learn from what they are doing? Is there a way you can be part of what they are doing and learn, right? Because again, you would not find all-around perfect people who are 100%. That is difficult. But you would find people who you can get some things from and move on. So there, you also might not have leaders you follow all your life. Some leaders are just for certain time or the period you have in a certain, the phase of your life. So if they are useful for you, why not? But at the end of the day, what you get from anything is also about who you are. What you get from any leader, what you get from any organization is about who you are, how you are positioned to harness those opportunities. So you have to be conscious about that. But one thing you shouldn't compromise on is character abuse. You don't want a leader that is compromising on character or who is abusing you in any way. That is not good for you. But in terms of competence, some people have certain competencies that others don't have. Is what they have something you can learn from at this time? Can you deal with the situation? Yes, go ahead. But I can assure you that for especially when it comes to political leaders or organizational leaders, there's always a bigger interest or agenda. If it doesn't align with yours, then I think you shouldn't be part of that system. I hope that provides some answer to you. It might not be perfect, but I'm sure Mr. Itayo can also weigh.
You are the leader in this case.
Well,
all right.
We can talk about that later.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's quickly go to Oka. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, please.
Okay, thank you. Sometimes we might have superiors who feel that you're usurping authority or you're trying to take their place when you take timely decisions in their absence or when they are slow to take actions. When you take these actions, they feel that you're trying to prove yourself So when you're in a situation like this, what do you do? Did you hear me?
Yes, we heard you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we heard you. Thank you. Talk about leadership without talking about followership. Even though we don't talk enough about followership, we should talk about followership. But one rule, general rule is carry people along, carry your leaders along. People have different leadership styles, and you must understand people. And an important part of leadership followership is also understanding their weaknesses. What are their insecurities? You as a leader, you should deal with your insecurities. But leaders have insecurities, things that they are threatened by, things that they don't like. So as a leader, you should know it. And when you know that, emotional intelligence is also a important skill to have, how to manage people, right? And make sure you get the best out of them. In that particular situation, a general rule of the thumb is no leader wants to be caught unawares, either they are slow or fast. Also, that wants to be outshined, even though I don't think that's the thing, but the point is you always have to give your leaders the opportunity to own the success of the team, right? Is that the best thing? Maybe not, but the reality is also the fact that in practice, in leadership practice, leaders want to understand everything that is out. They don't want to be caught unaware. So as a follower, as much as you also want to be responsible, take initiative, make decisions, you have to understand that your growth and promotion, especially in a corporate sense, is dependent on how you feel about you. So you have to manage that process well by understanding who they are. There are 4 principles of emotional intelligence. Number 1, know yourself. Number 2, manage yourself. Number 3, know others or your social environment. Number 4, learn how to manage others. Learning how to manage your leader is part of learning how to manage others. And before you can do that, you have to know them and then know what to do per time. If your leader doesn't like you making decisions without them, then involve them, especially when it's a leadership by position or by authority, and your progress is dependent on how they feel about you. Then it is important that you pay attention to whatever they would like done, usually expressed in the process that is put in place, because I see somebody just typed that, which is important. But then some leaders, it's just a function of insecurity. You have to understand that and know how to manage that. And because we don't have time, we can't begin to break down emotional intelligence, but learn emotional intelligence, take us effectively.
That's interesting.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
There's another question, sir.
Just hold on. It can be your car alone, please. We have to move on to another place. We have so many centers. Calabar, it's your turn.
Sorry, good day, everybody. Okay, my question is, it's like a challenge that most times, I don't know if you can hear me from there.
We can hear you.
Okay,
Yeah.
like a challenge where you're in an organization and you have a leader that you know that something is really wrong, and if you air out, it's as if you're opposing the leader while it's the right thing that you want to really present for a change in maybe an establishment. How do you, that has the idea, how do you put it? Maybe present it to that the people and also the leader, so that he might see that okay, you're aiming for the benefit of the organization, not really wanting to act as though you know it all. So how do you manage that?
Thank you for that question. I'll try to answer it as fast as possible. And I would say that I'm not sure what the other content of this workshop is, but I think emotional intelligence would be important, because some of these questions you're asking are questions about people management and emotional intelligence, which is important. Again, it is about understanding people. And let me tell you, no matter the kind of face people put forward as being really or the face they put forward, there's always something inside them, either a deficiency or yearning or something they're looking forward to. And you would do yourself a great service if you can get through the face, the facade, or whatever people put forward to knowing who they truly are. And that's based on building real relationship with people, to understand what exactly their fears are.
I'm here now.
Every leader has that. And the moment you understand that, you are most likely a step ahead of many of these challenges we are discussing. And of course, there are processes. Again, there will be processes for some of these things. But when those processes fail, then it's a good time to go personal and employ emotional intelligence skills to appeal to that deep, deeper things that people are faced with. Some people, I've seen leaders that it is just family challenge they have, and it reflects as some of these things we are talking about. And if we're able to connect with them at that level, then we are able to come and address the issue, the real issue, and it's easier for them. But more importantly is to say that let's learn to build personal relationships beyond professional ones, and would always be ahead of professional issues, because then we can address the real issues that are there, right? But again, processes are important. We should pay attention to them and know how to solve issues. Maybe in my next sessions, I'll try to just include some components of emotional intelligence if we don't have a session on that during this workshop, so that we can also see some of these issues around understanding ourselves, understanding other people, and being able to appeal to those inner things, the desires, the insecurities, the fears that people have, because those things come out as, some of these things we are talking about.
All right. Another thing I want to add to that is, as someone who is under a leader, you must learn how to manage up. So managing up is a requirement for you to work effectively and efficiently with your leader. If you Google managing up, you will see quite a number of ways you can do that. Obetan Mbang, I've seen your hand up. Please unmute yourself, and then we take American Center.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Olushola so much for this wonderful session. Yes, my name is Obetan Mbang, joining from Ikeja. My question is still on the aspect of leadership. Now, when you are under a leader who doesn't take character as something too important, and for you, character issues are things you don't joke with. For instance, you have a contract you have signed with people, but while working on it, it tends to be switching sides. Today, he accepts a particular agreement, tomorrow he switches. So how, as a leader who don't joke with character, how are you going to manage this kind of a leader, sir? Thank you.
All right, jumping on that quickly, the first thing I would say is if your character doesn't align with where you are, then it's a good education that you shouldn't be there. We perhaps might have so many other ways to say it, but I think character things are things that are deep-rooted and are difficult to change. I also think there are conflicts, there are major conflicts that they are difficult to manage. However, we must understand the reality of the fact that you can't just jump out of a job if you don't have another. So it might just be best that if there are ethical codes or processes, then that's a process you should engage and just put things, let things be known. Because again, these are things that can lead to legal things. If you are doing something wrong as a company ethically and then you're caught, you might not be able to remove yourself out of it. So the first thing I would say, because I think character and values are like fundamental. If they don't align, you shouldn't be there. You should be where your values and character aligns with. So that way you have less conflict to deal with. I also see somebody say diplomacy. Well, people have different meaning of diplomacy, but I still think at the end of the day, if character don't align, then you shouldn't be there. If you have to work your way out, then have a plan, 3 months, 6 months to getting out, and while you are there, because at the end of the day, when you agree to work with a company, you have agreed to be bound by the values, the ethics that they have put in place. And that also goes to say that when you are going to work somewhere or work with a team, those are the questions you should ask and clarify. By asking those questions and clarify it, you mark yourself out already. They already know that this is somebody who will work by some of these ethics we have agreed with, that we have mentioned. So by the time you start to bring up feedback around ethics, they won't be surprised. It will be expected. And that way you make it easier for yourself. But from where I sit, if ethics and values and character things don't align, then there will be problems, fundamental problems that you cannot even manage. You should work your way out. That would be my answer.
Thank you very much. We go to American Center, Lagos. This is coming from Busayo Adedeji. Say in a situation where events require us to lead and are relatively low resources, how do we go around this and still achieve reasonable success?
So the question of resources, there are different types of resources anyway, but most times when people talk about resources, they are talking money. But I've learned that the most important kind of resources are people. Because when you have people, you can have access to so many other things. And I've led projects that you are expecting $10,000. At the end of the day, $1,000 came, and or sometimes $0 shows, and you still have to get it done. The question is, the thing to do really is to go back to your people, make the reality known. This is the situation we have, but we have to get this done. What are the alternatives we have? What do you have? Perhaps some of the things you want to pay for, you have the skills, you have people who can get it done. And that's an important attribute all leaders will have. It's called the capacity to be resourceful, to improvise, to find alternatives to get things done. You would always need to be resourceful, because when it comes to project management, it's always balancing of three important things: money, scope, and quality. And usually money is not enough for almost everything. Money is never enough. So you would have to learn to depend on your team members' resourcefulness also, or understanding that the people you have are your most important resources and leveraging on the resources they have. And most often than not, you will be surprised at the amount of resources that other people have that you do not know about. So I think that's a quick answer I can give to that.
Oh, sorry. The last question for today is coming from VI. Please, VI, unmute yourself.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was a great session, Mr. Olushola. So my question very quickly is that in a situation where you have, because you mentioned something about investing in your team and exploring their capacity. So I want to believe that one of the ways you can do that is through delegating. So a situation where you're delegating to your team members and they are definitely enthusiastic about it, but they are not proactive, and at the end of the day, you end up lagging in the project and you're unable to meet deadlines, on your project. So how do you manage such team and you're still being a good leader at the same time? Thank you.
All right. Actually, the question I thought you were going to ask wasn't the one you asked, because the other question a lot of people ask is, when you train people on the go, should you keep training people? But since that's not what you ask, I'll just focus on when you delegate. So you should also understand that people cannot do more than what they have. So the general rule of delegation is know the capacity of the person you're delegating to. While you might also want to give them things a little bit beyond their capacity. The first thing is the capacity. Do they have the capacity to do? And having capacity to do has to do with training. So again, we have to keep training and retraining, and knowing your people, managing people. There are some people in my own office that when I give tasks, I can go to sleep because from experience they will deliver. But there are some people you have to micromanage. So the kind of tasks you give those people are tasks that you have time to micromanage, and they are not urgent. They are not critical tasks that would mean if the team fails or succeed. So it is really understanding people, their strengths, their weaknesses, and that's why every team has to continue on a regular basis, do personality trait tests, know who they are, the people, but also consistent training and development, right? Which the assumption is people will take well and improve and develop, but sometimes some people don't take trainings as fast as some others. So your patience with people to grow too is important, especially when you think they have more to contribute to people. But then if it's a business team and resources are going, one of the things we don't like to talk about is sometimes you have to just let some people go, right? It's an important skill that I have found that I have to learn, which is difficult, right? But before you do that, you have to be sure that you've given them as much opportunities to learn, to grow. But it's in the social settings where really nobody's paying anybody. You can't just send people away. Then you have to be patient through the process and know what tasks you give to people. Tasks that are critical to the success of the team should not be given to people who will not deliver, who have not shown evidence or history that they deliver. The tasks that will be given to such people are tasks that you have time on, that are not critical, that they can learn from. But again, training is important, understanding people is important, and being patient with people is really, really important. Thank you.
Can we put our hands together for Mr. Wanekoko?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
My people say, if you want to know how the end of the day will look like, I think you could start from the very first day. I believe this session that we have planned out for you is going to be wonderful, going by what we had today. So Mr. Wanekoko, thank you very much. This is a good start, and we'd like to please encourage all of us on this call to please come again. But let me announce to every one of you, if you are not registered and you are not in any of our American spaces, you will not get certificates. You are free to come in, you are free to log in, you are free to listen, participate, but if you need certificates, you need to sign up and then come in, sit, take the quizzes, and then if you score 80%, then you have the certificate. So we want to thank everybody for coming on this program. Bye-bye, see you on Thursday. We're having two programs on Thursday, 10 to 11, and then 11 to 1. 10 to 11 is speak with a diplomat. Everyone seated here, you're invited. Come and listen to one of our American officers on how she became a diplomat. It's a very interesting session. Thank you, and have a date with us next Thursday. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye.